We are here with a public service announcement and broadcast for the masses. I am your host, Giselle the She Boss, coming to you with some news you can use. So, like I promised you before, y'all, we're coming to clear up some of this misconception, misinformation, and misunderstandings about the purpose of living trust and how they may or may not work. So today, I just want to give y'all a little bit of information and clarity on what is the purpose of a living trust. All right. So these are just questions that we oftentimes, I oftentimes get, or I oftentimes see that people are not quite clear on the purpose of them. So just want to kind of give you the simple principles, the simple concepts, the simple information to clear some of the fog out and clear some of the confusion about. You can make your own informed decisions about what you think the best option and remedy is for you. So what is the purpose of a living trust? The basic purpose of a living trust is to provide an easy way to transfer property upon your death. Okay. So this is a tactic or a strategy that a lot of people use to avoid probate. And if you ever had to deal with probate, you know how much of a drag that can be to have your assets tied up or your inheritance tied up for the courts to decide what they, deem fit for your belongings and your assets. So that is something that a lot of people would love to avoid. And people just are unaware that there's a way to avoid it. So once again, we just need to understand that there's a game being played. And once we understand how to play the game and we understand the tools that have been provided for us to play the game, then we can actually structure ourselves to be able to play the game to win. And we can have some better outcome and results and some remedies to report. All right. Hello. So it also provides an excellent way to avoid costs and complications of the probate process. Because if you did know or you didn't know, if you do have family members that, are deceased, they transition, they leave something to you. If those assets and stuff get tied up going through probate, they're going to charge that estate for those proceedings. So that's just another way for the system to be able to make money off unsuspecting heirs. But once again, we need to understand that there are certain provisions that we can put in place to avoid these type of things from happening. And because we never know when our day or hour shall come, proper preparation prevents poor performance. So we should definitely do everything that we need to do to be able to just get some of these basic things in place to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, our assets, our families, our lineage, our inheritance, our estates, our future, our wealth, and so on and so forth. Okay. So in probate, the estate of a deceased person is settled by the courts. Once again, like I said, who do you want to make decisions about how things are carried out once you're gone? How your assets get distributed, what happens to them, who gets the benefits, who doesn't, who gets to take, who doesn't, who gets to charge your estate, who doesn't. Do you want to put provisions in place for certain things that happen the way that you see fit? That would be the purpose of having a living trust. And then, like I said, if you want to have a catch-all or some type of other safety net or provision in there, you can work on your living will or pour-over will to have and hold within that trust as well. So the court resolves our claims and distributes the decedent's property. Probate is a public process, right? So trust property, unlike probate, passes directly to your designated beneficiaries without any court involvement because it's private, right? So people prefer the privacy, convenience, and lower cost of a living trust arrangement to be drawn out over expensive probate processes, right? So basically, once again, this is a way to avoid those costs of probate, and this is a way to avoid time, inconveniences, privacy being breached and things of that nature, having your information in the public. Now, I wanted to provide some clarity on something because I know that a lot of people get confused about, well, if I record the trust or the certificate on the public, is the trust still private? So what we have to look at is the logic in this. If your trust certificate or declaration, whatever you decide to do, and that's if you decide to do that, if it is on the public record, the purpose of that would be for you to have a public notice and a record of a public notice and to be able to enforce that instrument because you have made public notice and you have a court number, you feel me, and a recording number on that document. That is going to help provide your initial standing, right, in these administrative streets. All right. So that's first and foremost, because remember, this is a revocable living trust we're mainly talking about, but we're just getting into the living trust aspect of it before we dive into what the revocable and irrevocable parts of that structure is and how that breaks down. All right. But the significance of this is a living trust is for a living individual, and that living individual can be all three parties to that trust instrument, which is the grantor. All right. And then the trustee and then the beneficiary. All right. So because you're playing all the positions, this is basically a self-governed structure, but it's not you as the structure. It's you governing the structure as a separate structure. And that structure is created for the purpose of asset protection, bypassing probate, and protecting privacy. So hopefully this helps to provide some clarity about the purpose and the benefits of why you would even want to have a living trust and who would stand to benefit from a living trust, which once again would be the grantor. But the beneficiaries would be the one to receive the benefits. All right. So it's kind of like the grantor is receiving the living benefit of that trust, and then the beneficiaries will receive the death benefit of that trust, similar to how an insurance policy works. So if you got any questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. Hopefully this provided some clarity. If it did, feel free to follow us and stay tuned for more information like this, because next we're going to come back and tell you a little bit more about how the living trust evolve over time. All right. And as always, if you have any questions, any concerns, any topics or inquiries that you would like for us to discuss on the news report, the Remedy Report newsroom, feel free to click the link in the bio, send us a contact, or send us a message on the website, or send us an email at mobcorpexecs@proton.me and let us know what questions and topics you would like for us to cover and report on the Remedy Report. Hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and we will see you again soon. Peace.